Hey y'all, Chris Jones, Gorilla Realty. This is a quick video to share our marketing evaluator tool with you. And the premise here is that you can run this on any marketing idea or marketing effort, whether it costs real dollars or just costs your time, and really quickly figure out whether it's going to move the needle for your business or not. And therefore, in lean times, if there's a recession, if just personally you're going through a tough time where cash flow is low, you can know exactly which expenses you should cut and which expenses you should keep. So I'm just going to run you through two examples of how to use this marketing evaluator. And then I'd love for you to just go out and use it and shoot us an email if you have any questions. Cool. So I'm going to talk about one really popular marketing idea that every agent's going to be familiar with. And then I'm going to also talk about one less popular idea that maybe you've never even heard of before. And I'm just going to run the evaluator on both ideas and we'll see which one comes out on top. Okay. So before you can do anything, you've got to put in some basic market stats. Imagine you're in a market, say Raleigh, North Carolina, 252,000 is the average commission side. Here is steady at 3%. Okay. And this is going to establish the budget per lead, right? So I'm not done filling out the calculator yet, but it did establish a budget per lead. And based on some really complicated statistical models, I know that I can spend up to $31.50 per lead. And I know that this will still be a good marketing idea. Okay. And so we're going to start there, and then you're going to go over to calculate what your time is worth, right? Because remember, there's two costs to any marketing idea. There's the actual dollars cost, and then there's the time that's invested in it. And a lot of times agents will completely ignore the time cost and therefore think that they've got a great marketing idea like cold calling for hours and hours and hours, not realizing that this is not a scalable idea, nor is it even a ROI positive idea once you factored out all the time investment. Okay. So how do you calculate what your time is worth? Well, one really easy way to calculate is to input your target yearly income. So let's say that we wanted to do 100,000 this year, and we plan to work roughly 50 hours a week. I think that's pretty typical for an agent. The truth is 70, 80 is typical for an agent, but 50 is what they should be working. And then the number of weeks vacation, I always take a week off, right? That means my hourly worth based on those targets is $41.67. Okay. So now we know what our hourly cost is. And we figured out two things. We figured out our budget per lead, and we figured out our hourly cost, or what our hourly worth is as an agent. Okay. Now we're gonna evaluate. We're gonna run this evaluator on two different marketing ideas. The first one's going to be really popular. So you guys are all familiar with the idea of an open house. A lot of, especially new agents, think an open house is a great way to get free leads. Anybody ever heard the idea of getting a free lead from a open house? Yeah, well, it's not free, and I'm going to show you why. So first of all, if you do an open house the way that most people do, there is some initial outlay, right? So you're probably going to buy a few open house signs. Maybe your broker provides them, probably not, but you might have to buy a few open house signs. So we're going to say that that's about $60. Then we're going to add to that, in all likelihood, you're probably going to buy some refreshments. We don't do that for our open houses, but it's very typical. And so let's say that you spent another $30 on refreshments. Okay. And so you're at minimum $90. So this is a cheap idea. I won't lie to you. This is a really cheap idea, especially if you're a brand new agent and you have nothing really to invest, or you're on a shoestring budget. So $90 isn't a lot. Okay. But it is something that has to be factored in. Okay. So that's the typical cost. They could range depending on, like, if you're doing a open house in a luxury condominium in New York City, your refreshments might be caviar and lobster. Okay. And so, your outlay could be a lot more expensive. So whatever your cash cost is, just put those in this field. Okay. But for a typical open house in suburban America, we're looking at $90 minimum to run an open house, even if you're doing it on a shoestring budget. Okay. Now, what about the time cost? Okay. So you're going to have to get the place ready first, right? Then you're going to probably be open from, I don't know what's typical anymore, but maybe 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., right? So there's about 5 hours invested there plus an hour before, and then an hour of cleanup, getting the place all shut down again. All right. So 7 hours to run the open house. Okay. So now this free idea is starting to add up. Okay. So the last thing that we need to know is we need to know how many leads were generated. Okay. And obviously your results may vary just depending on how good at open houses you are. But in typical suburban America, what I see a lot of is somewhere between 2 to 5 leads, more likely to be on the 2 lead. And of course, sometimes you might go and have no leads, right? We're looking for averages. So I would say on average, you're going to generate 2 to 3 buyer leads that are not yet represented by an agent. Okay. Now, obviously, these are just leads. They're not guaranteed deals. They're not money in the bank. They're not commission checks. They're just leads. Okay. And the number of leads generated, I'm going to say, is 2.5, since it's somewhere between 2 and 3. All right. Now, here's what you find out. Once this free idea, right? Because open houses are free. As long as you get permission to run an open house on somebody's, or if it's your own listing, this is free, right? Well, once you calculate out the cash cost, okay, and you might even subtract out the $60 for the signs because now you own them and you're able to use them over and over and over, so they don't cost you $60 every time. So that's fine. Let's do that, okay? So now you're just $30 out for refreshments, and then 7 hours in terms of your time cost, right? Run the numbers, okay? Budget per lead is $31.50. What you actually spent per lead is $128.67. Okay? So this is a bad idea. You should can this marketing idea. So when it comes to whether you should cut expenses, you should cut this expense when times are lean, when you can't afford to just willy-nilly test new ideas. Okay? So the answer is no, you shouldn't keep this idea. All right, makes sense? All right, the next idea is we're going to keep the market factors the same. We're going to keep the hourly worth the same. The only thing we're going to change is the stats for the marketing idea. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about an idea that we call the Craigslist killer strategy. Right. So this is a playbook, also known as the Craigslist playbook, that we use in conjunction with Pipeline Pro Tools, which is our lead generation software. And you can use it with or without Pro Tools. Okay, so you can actually go out and try this idea yourself. But there's zero cash cost, right? So it doesn't cost anything to run this idea. It will take about 1 hour every time you do this. Okay, and generally we generate 4 to 5 leads. I'll just go on the conservative side and say that it's 4 leads for every hour that we invest in running this Craigslist campaign. And that means my budget per lead is $31.50, but my actual cost per lead is only $10.42, right? Now, again, don't fall into the temptation that because Craigslist doesn't cost anything, that therefore it's a free idea. Remember, you have to accurately factor in the time cost. And we're spending about an hour a week, okay? So cost per lead is only $10.42. So yes, you can keep this idea, okay? So it's just an example of 2 different ideas, and one that you should can and one that you should keep. But I want to challenge you to take this marketing evaluator tool, and I want you to run it on your top 3 marketing ideas. So if somebody asks you, what are your top 3 ways to get leads? I want you to run each one of those ideas through this marketing evaluator tool and find out if it's really as good of an idea as you thought that it was, right? Let me know your results. Let me know if there's anything that surprises you after you use this. Enjoy. Talk soon.